Around 6 months ago, Warner Bros. Games Montreal released their first AAA game since the release of Batman Arkham Origins in 2013. For many years, fans had been anticipating the next installment in the Batman video game mythos after the release of Batman Arkham Knight in 2015. It wasn't until DC FanDome 2020 that WB Montreal finally revealed the game they've been working on for many years, that being Gotham Knights. Gotham Knights is a third-person open-world RPG based on the mythos of Batman and the Bat family, which is separate from the continuity of the Batman Arkham franchise. The game opens with Batman's supposed death, so it's up to the Bat family to protect Gotham in the wake of Batman's absence. The game allows solo or two-player co-op with the player able to choose amongst 4 Bat family members, including Nightwing, Batgirl, Red Hood, and Robin. Now that the game has been out for a bit, I decided to deeply analyze the impact of the game and see if it still holds up, and how it compares to the Arkham games, and if the game is even worth getting today. Through the entirety of this video, I will be giving spoilers for like literally the entire game, so if for some reason you haven't played it and you still want to play without knowing anything, well, I don't really know what to tell you. I mean, play it, come back, or if you don't care, you watch the video, see if if you want to get it or not. But yeah, spoilers. I'd like to think that this overview of Gotham Knights doesn't take the game for granted and really looks at the full picture. Or at least I would hope so, considering I spent over 86 hours on this game. As I've stated previously, the game opens with Batman's supposed death due to the actions of Ra's al Ghul infiltrating the Batcave and taking Bruce Wayne by surprise. The game does a decent job of portraying a well-choreographed cutscene of the full encounter between Batman and Ra's al Ghul. Batman ultimately decides to blow up the cave, leading to his eventual death when his body is discovered by the 4 Bat family characters. For the most part, I'd say Gotham Knights probably has one of the best openings to a Batman game, and it really does a good job of setting the tone and impact on Batman's absence. Well, for the most part anyway. Even though the game does not take place in the Batman Arkham continuity, I could see why common folk could get confused, as Bruce Wayne supposedly dies in a similar fashion like he did in Arkham Knight, even though Arkham Knight Bruce Wayne didn't actually die. Cena and Suicide Squad killed Justice League. But don't worry, the two games are not connected in any way, shape, or form, so you do not, don't get those two confused. After Bruce Wayne's funeral, the 4 Bat family members, being Nightwing, Batgirl, Red Hood, and Robin, all meet up at Bruce's grave to figure out their next move. They decide to track down Batman's last case before his death, and the player then gets to choose what character they want to play as. Throughout the game, you can play as the same character you picked for the entire duration of the game, or switch to any other character by entering the Belfry, which is the hero's base of operations. The opening mission serves as any other tutorial mission in a video game by showing basic movesets, combos, abilities, etc. The player then infiltrates Gotham University to grab a hard drive containing information deducted by Kirk Langstrom. This then leads to the Bat family meeting up at the Belfry, which then they decide to sneak into GCPD headquarters to find Kirk Langstrom's dead body, as the hard drive is locked behind Langstrom's DNA encryption key. The daughter of Ra's al Ghul, Talia al Ghul, is spotted incinerating her father's body and warns the player that the League of Shadows will make their move on Gotham soon. So one major gripe I have with the game is that the story doesn't really allow for much interaction between the different Bat family members outside of any significant interactions in the Belfry. The story tells you that all of the knights are patrolling Gotham at once, but in reality it just feels like you're the only one in the streets while everyone else is just chilling in the Belfry talking to you on your earpiece. The only interaction between the 2 of the knights, like the Batman characters outside of the Belfry, that's actually within the streets of Gotham, is Nightwing and Red Hood. I like this interaction a lot, but they're pretty much never present throughout the game. Like interactions like this outside of the Belfry, I don't really see much often. And the Belfry has plenty of interactions between the knights that I very much enjoy, but I just wish they found a way to implement more of those dynamics throughout the main story. Most of the interactions are optional, don't really contribute to much. These knighthood cutscenes give a lot of character development to each of the knights, but they're optional and not integral to the main plot of the game. You could literally play the game without experiencing scenes like Barbara dealing with the impact of having the trouble of remembering her dad's face even though she has a photographic memory, or Nightwing trying to step up to become more of a leader, or Jason Todd's trauma and Tim Drake's how much he misses Bruce because he was such a mentor figure and he's the youngest of the group. Oh, and by the way, they also decided to kill good old Jimbo in the game, Jim Gordon, so yeah, it's one more thing added to piss you off. Anyway, back from my little tangent onward to the rest of the story. The Knights receive a message from Harley Quinn, who has been investigating another lead for Batman while locked up in Blackgate Penitentiary. The player discovers evidence of a centuries-long conspiracy where multiple criminals were released early from Blackgate after key witnesses to their crimes were murdered out of the blue. with Kirk Langstrom being the latest victim. The Knights then confront the Penguin, suspecting he is involved with the conspiracy. The Penguin proceeds to tell the player the existence of the Court of Owls, a secret society that supposedly rules Gotham from the shadows. He then directs the Knights to infiltrate the Powers Club, discovering that Court of Owls is in fact real. A secret Court of Owls hideout underneath the Powers Club is discovered, and the player goes through a multitude of encounters between different types of court members. A bunch of bullcrap happens and you manage to escape with an old key. Realizing that Batman had been secretly investigating the Court of Owls, the Knights manage to learn that the court is allegedly searching for a fountain of youth. The Knights use the key to access a secret mine underneath Gotham, where the court has been conducting an element or a compound called Dionysium, which basically serves as a bootleg Chinese version of the Lazarus Pit. This compound is pretty much used to create undead super soldiers, which are the talents that you see throughout the game. Later on, Talia al Ghul reveals that the League have been observing the Court of Owls and are preparing to destroy all of Gotham just to eliminate them, and advises that the Knights defeat the court before the League can mobilize. Now, the concept of a League of Shadows versus Court of Owls gang war and Gotham serving as the battleground actually sounds like a pretty interesting idea on the surface. But the problem is that you as the player barely see the intensity of the encounters between the court and the League of Shadows. Kind of faces the problem of a show don't tell kind of thing. The player infiltrates a masquerade party at the Orchard Hotel, hosted by the Court of Owls. The mission results in the player finding out that the secret leader of the court is actually Jacob Kane, the uncle of Bruce Wayne. He states how he knew Bruce Wayne was Batman and warns the Knights to not interfere with his plans. Typical villain shenaniganery. My issue with this reveal is that there really is no proper build-up to the secret throughout the story, and it's kinda obvious while playing, but League of Shadows assassins attack the masquerade, slaughtering many court members. After a while, when the Knights gather enough evidence to take down Jacob Kane, the Bat family enlists the help of Renee Montoya, who serves as a trustworthy GCPD detective, revealing their true identities to her as a sign of trust. And throughout the game, as established with Bruce Wayne's code black message in the beginning of the game, the GCPD do not like vigilantes. Ever since Jim Gordon died, they had a new police commissioner. This is kind of anti-vigilante kind of mentality, so that's why police officers and GCPD cops are willing to just go full assault on the Knights. Renee Montoya agrees to serve an arrest warrant against Jacob Kane, which leads to the big encounter at Kane Industries. The Knights breach the defenses and ultimately take Jacob Kane down.
Maybe you should have stayed dead.
But he is then assassinated by Talia al Ghul before he's taken to the custody, very similar to like the Batman. Talia reveals she manipulated the Bat family into giving her the advantage in killing the leader of the court. The Knights follow Talia's trail to the ruins of Arkham Asylum, where they find that the League of Shadows had taken Kirk Langstrom's research and Lazarus Pit water to manifest mutant man-bat creatures. After dealing with the man-bats, the player follows the League into a network of tunnels underneath the Gotham Cemetery, where they find a Lazarus Pit under the ruins of the Batcave. A mysterious tunnel leading into the mysterious Lazarus Pit underneath the Batcave.
My fellow Americans, I think we all know where this is going, so let's just skip to the end.
Talia al Ghul then reveals that she had stolen Bruce Wayne's body and revived him in the Lazarus Pit, using its capabilities to brainwash him into becoming the League's next leader. The player has a boss fight with Bruce and manages to free him of the brainwashing, and a final boss fight between Talia ensures that then you end up defeating her. And honestly, after going through the story, I realized how Bruce and Talia are legit the only boss fights in the whole story. Like, no, I'm being dead serious. That and I guess the man-bites you fight throughout the story are like the only major boss fights beside the 3 side quest boss fights, that are literally just side missions, that being Mr. Freeze, Harley, and Clayface. You would think that a Bat family game centered in Gotham would have a plethora of iconic rogues, to face, but that just isn't the case. Like, seriously, why does the game barely have any Batman villains in the main story mode other than the court and the League of Shadows to fight? Like Scarecrow, Two-Face, Riddler, Joker, Poison Ivy, Bane, Black Mask, nowhere in sight. Like, it's crazy. Okay, back to the end of the game. After Talia legit dips after you beat her in the boss fight, members of the Court of Owls, the ones that remain, and a new leader enter to claim the Lazarus Pit, which then prompts Bruce into sacrificing himself to destroy the pit, and by ramming the Batwing into it.
Because I won't let you. Oh man, I can't have shit in this house!
Yes, you heard right. Bruce Wayne Batman killed himself kamikaze style to destroy the Lazarus Pit. Alright, I have a lot to say about this. In the aftermath, Talia and the League abandoned Gotham, leaving only a few assassins to harass the Knights. The court goes into hiding and continues to plot in the shadows. To reassure the people of Gotham while planning to expose Jacob Kane, the player you choose for the end makes a public address declaring that the city is under their protection. And yeah, that's the story for Gotham Knights. No, literally, that's it. While looking at the whole picture of the story mode, you realize that the actual campaign really isn't that long, and it's just mainly prolonged by tedious side quests and interrogations. Not to mention the fact that the traversal in the giant open world is just straight up abysmal. Like seriously, the bat cycle is so slow to use, and the air traversal is locked behind certain missions you have to complete for each individual playable character. So even if you did all the challenges to unlock the traversal for like Robin, you have to do that 3 more times if you want traversals for Batgirl, Red Hood, and Nightwing. But going back to the actual ending of the game, yeah, I hate it. Like, it pisses me off for a multitude of reasons. The game kills Batman in the beginning of the game, brings him back to life, just to kill him off again. What was the point in bringing him back then? Like, I know it serves as a, the Bat family's goodbye to Bruce, and that they're the new protectors of Gotham, but if you have the, notion that Batman is dead, then you should probably stick to that premise. Because in actually, like, on the surface, like, it's actually not a bad idea. Like, there's a lot of potential for a story centered on the Bat family trying to rise up as the new protectors of Gotham while Batman is dead. Also, didn't Bruce technically kill a bunch of Court of Owls members by blowing up the underground Lazarus Pit? No? Okay, well, I guess we'll just ignore that then. Another major problem I have with the ending kind of goes back to the problem I stated previously with the game being more Gotham Knight instead of Gotham Knights, plural, if you know what I mean. Like, why is the player you choose the only character that gives a motivational message to the Gotham citizens at the end of the game? The game centers on the fact that your character grows throughout the story to ultimately reach knighthood and become like the ultimate protector of Gotham. But honestly, it feels kind of lackluster. Like, I feel like the other members of the Bat family should be in the ending as well, like as a unit. And on top of that, I just feel the story in general is just kind of lackluster in my opinion. Having the Court of Owls as a central villain should have been an easy slam dunk for WB Montreal, like an easy layup. It's a banger story right there. You have years of the comic source material to pick from, which they did to some degree, with the labyrinth sequence in the game, which I really liked. Where each specific player goes through like a multitude of like hallucinogenic type sequences akin to the comic. Apparently, the writer of the Court of Owls comic, Scott Snyder, he was somewhat of a consultant for the game, but the fact that they didn't just hire him as a main writer is a major missed opportunity. Like, not to diss any of the writers on the game, I'm sure they were very passionate on the project, but in comparison to the writing in like the Batman Arkham games by Rocksteady, I kind of get the impression that the writers room just aren't really big Batman fans, if that makes sense. The reason I say that, because in comparison to Batman Arkham, you could tell that the Rocksteady team were really big fans of like Batman, and specifically the Batman the Animated Series, due to the fact that they got the voice actors to come do the game, like Mark Hamill, Arlene Sorkin, Kevin Conroy, etc., and going as far as hiring Paul Dini, who was a writer on the show as well. The Arkham games are filled to the brim with Easter eggs, references, and just overall major Batman characters that play into the story significantly. But with Gotham Knights, there seems to be a fundamental misunderstanding of some of these characters in my eyes. One major example of this is how they portray Red Hood in the game. His revival of the Lazarus Pit supposedly gave him these weird looking mystical powers and the ability to hop in the air like he's Goomba from Mario. And the developers defend this by saying, well, it's in the comics, or, it's in the source material. Alright, but dude, never in the continuity was Jason able to manifest a Kamehameha bullet from his gun or radiate energy like an anime character. And if we're continuing on the bandwagon of characterizations of the Bat family, Tim Drake is another one I want to talk about. Tim Drake, as stated in, comics continuity, is the smartest out of all the 4 main Robins and is a master detective. And the game tries to imply that throughout certain interactions, like him playing chess. However, I feel like as if the writers never actually demonstrated why he's so intelligent or how he utilizes his detective skills. This is somewhat due to the fact that the story operates in a way where scenes and actions can't really be specific to one character. You know, like if Batgirl would investigate a clue for like the Court of Owls, that scene won't really change drastically if you were playing as Nightwing or Red Hood, so you don't really get to see that specific character moments. Nightwing, for another example, is the golden boy of the Bat family. He's usually depicted as the leader and serves as a shining example of Batman's greatest success. Gotham Knights, however, I feel like doesn't really show you why he's a great leader. Yeah, and I look at this clip, he's like, you know, you need to be a great leader, but I'm like, but why though? Why in this universe is he designated with the responsibility of leadership other than the fact he's the oldest? I mean, I know why due to my knowledge of other source material and in the comics. Like, I understand why, but if I knew nothing about Batman or the Bat family going to this game, I wouldn't really be convinced in the confidence level of Dick Grayson's leadership skills. Man, looking at all that, I cannot believe I really spent $80+ on this game when it launched, just to be on a 40% discount a month after it dropped. Oh my god. Okay, anyway, let's talk about the core gameplay. So the way I would describe the combat is that it's really kind of like a combination between Batman Arkham and Marvel's Spider-Man combat, but a really watered down version of the two. Personally, I think the combat is better and more engaging in comparison to, say, Marvel's Avengers, but that's not really saying much now, is it? The combat emphasizes light, heavy, and ranged attacks with different movesets and abilities specified for each individual character. Nightwing specializes in his eskrima sticks, Batgirl with her tonfas, Red Hood with his dual pistols, which somehow includes armor-piercing non-lethal rounds. Yeah, alright bro. And Robin with his quarterstaff. One thing I do like about the co-op gameplay is that you can do certain takedowns moves with certain enemies. One thing that kind of differs from Batman Arkham is that it has no counter mechanic, so you have to dodge a lot while playing, and I'm not gonna lie, it gets old pretty fast. On top of all that, each knight has their own unique way of traversal, with Batgirl having the ability to glide, Robin's teleport, Nightwing's flying trapeze, and Red Hood's mystical leap. And starting with Batgirl's glide, and with an honest opinion,
and I've got to say, in all honesty, it's the biggest piece of dog shit.
Yeah, it's horrendous. Like, it's like they took the glide mechanic from Batman Arkham and purposefully made it 10 times worse. It's pretty slow in comparison and not as fluid to maneuver. Robin's teleportation has like a 7 to 8 second cooldown, but after it you can immediately reuse that mechanic mid-air, so the cooldown time seems kind of redundant. Not to mention the actual movement of the teleport feels really slow. Like, you can go like up and down, and I guess it'd be really good for maneuverability for rooftops, but like actual traversal and leaping great distances is just not that practical. You might as well just use the slow path cycle. And with Red Hood's mystical leap ability, yeah, it's probably my least favorite traversal method in the entire game. Nightwing's traversal isn't bad per se, but it really surprised me how the developers couldn't have come up with a way to incorporate more of his acrobatics while he traveled in the air. Now, onto skins and customization. The thing that surprised me about this game is how little comic accurate suits are present, or rather suits inspired by other adaptations. Most alternate suit designs in the game are completely original designs by the team, which on paper isn't a bad idea, but I think that was a huge mistake and a major missed opportunity. Like, dude, how come there aren't like any new 52 skins, or the outlaw skin from Rebirth for Red Hood, or the classic Under the Red Hood skin? I mean, you see elements of that, but I would rather just be like kind of like the Arkham games where they just got skins from other medias and adaptations. There's also a gear system implemented in which each knight's gear is composed of their suit, melee weapons, and their ranged weapons. Gear can be upgraded at the workbench using blueprints and different crafting materials. Each blueprint is a set of gear, has different stats and a different appearance within the game. Some gear comes with mod slots, which can be customized with mod chips to enhance different gameplay properties. And if that all sounds boring to you or uninteresting, that's because it is. Like, I'm not even gonna cap with you, bro. Like, this whole system of gear feels so unnecessary, and like, it's just stealth in this game also has really not much to offer. You know, it's pretty basic with its mechanics. You know, at most all you do is just go up behind enemies, do a stealth takedown, or like a vantage point takedown. The only character, or one of the nice ass some variety in stealth, is Robin, as he has the ability to like utilize ledges and kind of cloak himself temporarily, and just has a lot of gadgets and, you know, tech that specializes in stealth missions. 6 months post-launch and there still has been no additional story DLC or cool skins added. I am not joking. The only significant DLC that came out was the Heroic Assault mode, which allowed for a 4-player co-op in which you fight a bunch of NPCs ranging from like court members to like Talons, and like I guess Starro is like the big bad of it. And it's like based on certain floors, but it's literally just like an underground cave. So like the actual setting like doesn't change, and it's really repetitive and kind of boring in my opinion. And this mode was announced before the initial launch of the game, so that kind of tells me that that mode was most likely gonna release during its initial launch, but they probably had to delay it. No new skins have been added other than the skins that can be accessed through digital codes found in the single issues of the game's prequel comic book. Like, bro, what are these skins, bro? Some Fortnite goofy looking costumes, I swear. A game like Gotham Knights has DLC story potential galore. I assume the lack of villains in the main game was due to future plans for DLC content, but that doesn't seem to be the case, which is a shame because the game itself really doesn't have much longevity after you beat the main game and all the side missions, which as expected aren't all that exciting either. Like outside of the 3 boss side missions that I'll get into in a bit, there's really not much to do. Like, yeah, you can do like crimes, but it's all the same thing. It's all repetitive, and a lot of it's just kind of collectibles. And after you do all that, which doesn't really take long, it's just kind of meh. The side missions that really stand out are the 3 villain side quests, which include Harley Quinn, Mr. Freeze, and Clayface. The Harley Quinn mission starts from the actual main story mode after the player completes the mission in Blackgate Penitentiary. The player completes a multitude of tasks that ultimately leads to the final confrontation between the player and Harley. The Clayface side mission sees players collecting clay samples and then following a trail to find Clayface. It's a classic Batman mystery with a classic Batman villain. It has a lot of fun, which concludes with a pretty decent boss fight, which gives some insight on Batman's final encounter with Clayface before his death. The Mr. Freeze side quest begins after some activity was reported at Star Labs, in which Mr. Freeze allies himself with a gang called themselves the Regulators to have them test some new equipment on innocent Gotham City civilians. There's a couple of boss fights in the game, in which one of the boss fights was actually shown in the first gameplay demo back in DC FanDome 2020, and this can be either played in solo or 2-player co-op. When the game initially launched, the reception of the game by major game critics and game reviewers alike were more mixed and lukewarm towards the game. Many criticized it for its co-op gameplay, lack of 60 FPS on console, and barely consistent 60 FPS frame rate on PC. Mission objectives, combat, side activities, all that were kind of scrutinized on against the game. And to be honest, I feel like the game wasn't really talked about much after its like first week of launch. It felt as if the game kind of just came and went, and after some people had finished the main game, they didn't really do much content on it afterward because there just wasn't much to do afterward. Some major game YouTubers only played bits of the game because they were sponsored by WB Montreal to play Gotham Knights, and I'm not sure how well or poorly the game sold on platforms, as the sales numbers were never really unveiled to like the public. But I'm assuming they were lackluster considering the fact that it was 40% off on Steam a month after it came out. Overall, I'd say Gotham Knights is a pretty disappointing entry in the superhero game genre. It's not a bad game, and it certainly is a better game than I'd say Marvel's Avengers in my opinion. Some of the co-op elements are really fun, when they work at least. The character interactions in the Belfry are compelling, most of the voice acting is solid, and the open world is pretty big, but taking into account with the game's lackluster combat, disappointing story, lack of content and DLC, practically dead atmosphere when it's open world, mediocre traversal, and uninspiring customization, the game honestly currently in my opinion serves as a mundane result of a game with a lot of missed potential in its hands.